This is Katie, co-host of Coffee with Keith and Katie. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media.
I'm the Greg.
And I am Dave Show.
We host the Greg and Dave Show on Public House Media.
Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media. Once you're done with this episode, I hope you'll come check out our show, The Greg and Dave Show, where we talk about strange, bizarre, and sometimes just downright quirky news stories that you may not have heard about.
A new show comes out every Wednesday. Be sure to subscribe on iTunes. And hey, thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media.
Throughout history, the course of sports has been shaped by one thing: the fans.
From the moments you never dreamed of,
Bobby Womack has saved the USA's life in this World Cup.
Hall, the runner, loose ball, it's good! Gonzaga, the slipper still fits! To the moments that still give you nightmares.
Behind the bag, it gets through Buckner. Here comes Knight, and the Mets win it.
He's in! Patriots win the Super Bowl! Brady has his fifth!
through the good and the bad, fans have helped change the games we watch and the players we love.
They may not be the most logical people.
You are a factory of sadness!
I'll see you Sunday.
But they know their teams better than anybody.
They'll blow in the ninth.
You may not always see them, but you know where to find them.
After all, there's nothing quite like the view from the cheap seats.
Broadcasting is part of the Public House Media Network.
Grab a chair and enjoy all there is in
The cheap seats.
There's an old saying, what's old is new again, and I feel like sometimes in sports that holds the most true. Welcome all the way up in the cheap seats, everybody. Christian Heimall along with Jon Lauder on this Monday, May 7th, 2018. And the reason I say that, because no matter how many guys get carted off out of the TD Garden or how many scrubs LeBron picks to play with, it still feels as though it's going to be Celtics-Cavs in the Eastern Conference Finals. And, yeah, that might actually happen here, Johnny. 3-0 for both the Celtics and the Cavaliers after really kind of just some exciting games. Don't get me wrong. They've been exciting, but it's been really kind of disappointing to see that both these series are 3-0.
I mean, honestly, the NBA playoffs have just been terrible. I mean, there's really no other way to put it. You know, other than LeBron hitting some ridiculous shots and, you know, Lance Stevenson blowing in people's faces and, you know, Rajon Rondo making Draymond Green mad and then Charles Barkley saying he was going to punch Draymond Green in the face. That's really been basically it. I mean, when Charles Barkley has made more news than in any of the playoff games, you've got a problem. Yeah. It's really been pretty boring thus far. I do not understand why the Raptors cannot physically play a game of basketball correctly against the Cavaliers ever. And the fact that Boston's up 3-0 without Irving and Hayward, basically, you might as well just put Brad Stevens in the Hall of Fame already.
Yeah.
And, oh, God, the end of these games have just – Game 3 was just so unwatchably terrible at the end. I mean, J.J. Redick was just throwing the ball away. It was a disaster for Philadelphia. They've been terrible. But, you know, at the end of the day – at the end of the day, it's going to be Cleveland against Houston or Golden State. LeBron will play amazing, and Cleveland will lose, and then we'll all move on with our lives. So can we just get there? Let's just get past all this garbage, and let's just get to where we need to get to. We're going to break all this down with Brandon Robinson coming up in the next segment, the host of Scoopy Radio, fellow Hofstraite. But real quick, Christian, we got to get into the Kentucky Derby because 3 times a year we all have to pretend we care about horse racing. It was muddy, it was gross, it was rainy. But the horse that was supposed to win won, so if you put money on it, you got like 2 cents back.
Basically.
And, you know, Bob Baffert won again and also forgot to take a shower because he's gross looking. But, you know, that's pretty much it. I mean, I'll never understand why we need 7 hours of pregame for a 2-minute race.
I never, Especially when Johnny Weir looks like he's hosting the Hunger Games. Like, that's ridiculous.
God. And then it was hilarious on Friday. You know, the sports pope who's elected to bore us all again was breaking down, you know, each length of the horse's legs with some horse racing expert while Matt Harvey gets DFA. He doesn't even mention it and blows chunks for 30 minutes talking about horse racing. Oh, it's awful. Oh God.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's one of those things. And listen, I didn't grow up in the land of horse racing, but I've lived in that area enough to know how much of a religion it is to people. And I've covered the Belmont
I get the
Stakes.
importance of these 3 races. I do get that.
Yeah, I've covered the Belmont Stakes multiple times. When we were in college, and it is fun. And I've been to all 3. I haven't been to all 3 Triple Crown races, but I've been to the venue of all 3, and it is a lot of fun. And it's a fun day. It's kind of like, I mean, it really is. It's like going to the casino. It's fun just for that quick little rush, but you feel terrible because you've lost money and you're drunk. So it's like the worst thing in the world. It's a lot of fun for about 3 minutes, and then you're like, why did I do that?
So basically, in Vegas, it's like a Tuesday.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a Tuesday at 8:30 in the morning in Vegas.
Right.
But I mean, the one thing I do know is that any horse trained by Bob Baffert is going to have a shot because he's just he's a legend. He's a legend for whatever reason.
He's a horse whisperer.
Yeah, he really is. He's Robert Redford, even though he looks like he should be the next
Lance
Kentucky
Stevenson
Colonel.
of horse trainers.
Yes. Even though he looks like he should be the next Kentucky Colonel. But Justify wins the Kentucky Derby. And here's just kind of an interesting, weird note. So for those of you who don't know, these Triple Crown races, these are meant for horses that are 3 years old. No older, no younger. The Breeders' Cup is meant for 2-year-old horses. Justify did not race at all as a 2-year-old. Did not race. So literally had not competed in over a year. And winning the Kentucky Derby, something no horse had done since 1882, when Apollo did 136 years, breaking what was known as the curse of Apollo. So congrats to Bob Baffert, congrats to Justify, and now we all pretend to care as if we're really hoping to see one of the rarest things, even though it is one of the rarest things in quote-unquote sports, the Triple Crown, even though we saw it 3 years ago with American Pharoah. So we'll look ahead for the next couple of weeks to the Preakness, and then, of course, the Belmont Stakes coming up in June in New York.
And also, by the way, back in 1880, whatever, there were more horses than people. So,
Probably
it's
true.
not
Probably true.
Yeah, it's a whole different thing. Let's get into the NBA. Enough horse racing. My head's going to explode. We'll get to some of these coaching hires first before we hit the playoff stuff. I'm intrigued to break some of this down with Brandon in the next segment.
Yeah.
David Fizdale gets hired by the Knicks. I mean, look, I would have preferred Mark Jackson. Well, let me say first, I'm not a Knicks fan, so I really don't care. But if I were a Knicks fan, I would have preferred Mark Jackson. I think he would have brought more interest to the table. Alan Hahn, who, if you don't live in New York City, is one of my favorite on-air people in New York, does Knicks pre-half post on air on 98.7, always is so in-depth on the Knicks and has great points constantly. Said something really interesting about Mark Jackson that I think a lot of other people have since echoed. Considering where the Knicks are at, Mark Jackson would have at least given the fans something to grasp onto. And they've had nothing to really hold in years. Because next year, Kristaps Porzingis is going to be out at least half the year. And if I'm the Knicks, I don't play him at all because you'll get a higher draft pick and he'll be 100% healthy. But that's just me. So the Knicks need something to hold on to. Is David Fizdale really something to hold on to? No. Mark Jackson would have been. Now, do I think Fizdale's a bad coach? No. I think the Memphis thing was blown out of proportion. I think Marc Gasol was being a bit of an ass. Fizdale didn't want to deal with it. They go their separate ways. In New York, Fizdale can do whatever he wants because there's no, long tenured star. Porzingis is still really young. So I don't think the Memphis thing matters here. I just think that you had other options. Could have hired Mike Budenholzer, who's from the Spurs tree, good at developing players. Just because Fizdale, once had lunch with LeBron doesn't mean that he was the right hire. So I'm not sure if the Knicks did the right thing.
He's got his phone number. He's got his phone number, John.
Yeah, you know what? Stephen A. Smith also has LeBron's phone number, okay? I don't care who has LeBron's phone number. I don't care.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, and listen, I love the hiring.
And I've got my mom's phone number, Christian. Does it really matter? Okay? I mean,
it should matter that you have your mom.
I mean, I guess that would only matter if my mom was LeBron James, but that's a whole other conversation.
Listen, I actually like the David Fizdale hiring. I like it for a couple of different reasons. Number one, I don't think I understand the idea where the Knicks are right now. You need someone to put butts in seats. I understand that, but as much as
actually, ironically enough, Christian, They don't need that. They have a full house every game. So I guess everything I just said means absolutely nothing.
It's the dumbest. I don't understand it. I don't understand.
Yeah, no. Let me explain it to you. It's all rich, wealthy people who are choosing between the Knicks or going to a Broadway show. That's what it is. The real Knicks fan is all the way in the cheap seats. Nice plug. Or they're watching at home. That's what it is. And that is part of the problem. James Dolan doesn't have to worry about filling the seats because they're filled by rich, snobby jerks.
Yeah. And listen, I mean, I personally, this is just me speaking here. The Knicks look like idiots for getting rid of Mike Woodson, 4 years ago.
But now he's going to come back as an assistant to Fizdale.
Which, and I think that's what's really important when you look at these coaching hires is who do they bring in on their staffs?
Right.
Because those are the people who really look from the scouting standpoint, from a game plan standpoint, from an X's and O's standpoint. All the coach is doing is yelling out plays and deciding who gets subbed in. The assistants are the one who have more hands on, and that's why I think this actually works. Is because you see this a lot of times where like a young head coach. Even, I'm trying to think, Sean McVay, if I remember correctly, with the LA Rams, he added a couple of really big key veteran guys on his coaching staff.
Wade Phillips.
Yeah, exactly, to kind of guide him along. And it makes their success that much better. You say, oh, wow, Sean McVay Coach of the Year. Really, I mean, having Wade Phillips there was a huge help for him, even though he was terrible as a head coach. That's why I kind of like the David Fizdale thing, is you're not going to be so much throwing it on the fact that, oh, Mark Jackson came back to New York and tried to revive his hometown city. Having Mark Jackson there is like having Chris Mullins at St. John's. It's going to be, when you're bad, it's going to be even worse. And now that you have David Fizdale, it's only going to be as bad as it actually is, even though Knicks fans love to overreact more than anybody else. So I actually like the Fizdale hiring. We'll find out what Brandon Robinson of Scoop B Radio thinks in just a couple of minutes. But, John, I mean, before we get into that, I mean, there's another one, and we'll talk maybe more about this after we speak with Brandon. Probably when this happened and she got hired as an assistant coach with the Spurs, I was ecstatic. And I'm like, wow, could you imagine her as the heir apparent to Greg Popovich? Becky Hammon may not have to wait that long to be a head coach.
Yeah, no, she's being interviewed by Milwaukee. To be honest with you, I would be surprised if she was hired, not because I don't think she's qualified. I absolutely think she's qualified. I just don't know if Milwaukee is the right team to make this hire. To be completely honest with you, what I would love to see happen is to see Becky Hammon get the job when Greg Popovich retires in San Antonio. Yeah. But Milwaukee is a small enough market. I think that it's better for a smaller market to be the first to make this type of hire. Just because, again, I don't in any way want to sound sexist or that I don't think Becky Hammon deserves the job. She 100% does. I just think that in a smaller market, there's at least a little bit less daily media presence.
Yes.
And I think that might be better. Now, look, if she gets this job, every single network is going to be there for the first, 2 weeks, of course.
Right.
But once those first couple of weeks die down, if she's in New York City, you've got like 77 beat writers there every single night. Yeah. I don't know if that's the optimal thing. So I do think Milwaukee's the right type of market. I just don't know if that's going to be the first market to sort of make the jump. But it's great she's being interviewed. She 100% deserves it. And I hope she gets the job. Now, real quick before we move on to the playoffs, 2 other hires. J.B. Bickerstaff going to Memphis. Yawn. No one really cares. The one that intrigues me is this foreign guy going to Phoenix, Kokoskov or something.
Yeah.
Because he coached Goran Dragic and also Luka Doncic, who might be the number 1 pick in the draft. This guy is a stud. Mm-hmm. He's ridiculous. If you haven't checked out his highlights, go to YouTube. He's ridiculous. He's only 18 years old. And this clearly tells anybody that knows anything about basketball that the Suns are taking this guy Doncic if they get the number 1 pick.
Oh, of course.
Now, should he be the number 1 pick? I don't know. I mean, he's obviously very good, but you've got DeAndre Ayton, Marvin Bagley. There's a lot of other really good players too. But I'm intrigued a lot by the Phoenix hire because we saw that David Blatt, who, by the way, was one of the finalists for the Knicks job, didn't do so great with Cleveland.
No.
So I'm intrigued to see another international guy kind of get his shot, in Phoenix. And again, it basically means that if they get the number 1 pick, they're going to get this Doncic guy, who's 6'8", can shoot the 3, kind of reminds me a little bit of a shorter Kevin Love. Excellent ball handler, can do some stuff inside and outside. But yeah, that was actually the most interesting hire out of the 3 so far. But there are also other teams that still need head coaches. And it looks like all the Spurs assistants might get jobs, so they better hope that Greg Popovich doesn't retire because they might not have anything left.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, the interesting part with Igor Kokosov is the fact that this is what the NBA's turned into. It's turned into a more European style where these big guys go out and shoot, and it's more about ball handling and outside shooting than anything else. So I think it might work out pretty well for them. And one quick point on Becky Hammon. One of the reasons I think Milwaukee's a great fit for her isn't necessarily the small media market. It's when you look at these other teams, John, Milwaukee's the only one that really has a chance to compete in its first year.
That's true.
Kind of make it quote unquote easier on her. Even though I don't think she needs it. But you look at Atlanta, you look at Charlotte, and you look at there's one other team I'm missing here. The Magic, Orlando. You look at those three teams, and as much as I would love to see what she's able to do with Orlando when they're actually healthy, I think Milwaukee's a better fit just because they're designed to win now. So, and that's they've
got Giannis, who's better than anybody that Orlando has by a mile.
Exactly.
Now, real quick, because we're going to break this down plenty with Brandon in the next segment, let's just talk some playoffs. Because honestly, Christian, there's not that much to say. The Eastern Conference is basically over. And in the West, it's going to be Golden State and New Orleans. I'm sorry. I mean, Golden State and Houston, excuse me. Even though, the Pelicans and the Jazz are giving much more of a fight than the 76ers and the Raptors are, LeBron James has been utterly ridiculous. As a Michael Jordan guy, it's becoming harder and harder for me to say that James is not better because he's just ridiculous.
Don't worry. At some point, John, you and I are going to have a whole show where we just argue because I'm already there, and I've been there for about a year or two.
Look, and I know that a lot of people are already there. I'm never going to get off my Jordan horse. I'm just not going to do it.
That's fine.
But, anybody else that has, I totally get it. I understand it. He's ridiculous. But Toronto is an embarrassment. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, there's really nothing. They're an
embarrassment. They're terrible.
They're
terrible. How could you be the number one seed and not even win a game?
Yeah, I mean, one thing to say about each series: LeBron's insane. Brad Stevens is the greatest coach currently in the playoffs. I don't care what anybody has to say.
Yeah, of course.
Donovan Mitchell has blossomed into one of the best guys there is in basketball right now, and Clint Capella has made a name for himself and has made Houston a destination for free agents this offseason if they don't win the title. So,
and by the way, Clint Capella, restricted free agent, the Knicks should be just tossing cash at him. But anyway,
and then they'll ruin
one other thing about Donovan Mitchell. This came out, I think, last week or the week before. Mitchell, of course, I think went 11 or 12 or something in the draft. The Knicks on their board had Ntilikina, Mitchell, and like one or two other players right at the top. And apparently multiple people in the Knicks organization in the draft room were screaming to pick Mitchell. And Jackson, even though he was fired right after the freaking draft, just went over all their heads and picks Ntilikina. Think about that. It could have had Donovan Mitchell, one of the best rookies we've seen in years. And they take Ntilikina, who's got the skill of a French baguette, and he's like 12 years old. I'm so happy I'm not a Knicks fan. Like, how can you even function as a Knicks fan?
I don't know.
Oh, God.
Let's just Mets fan. We'll get to that later. So
I can't. I can't.
We'll bring in Brandon Robinson here in just a little bit. He's going to try to lighten the mood here, bring Johnny's spirits up. I think he might be able to do that, though. Scoop B Radio podcast, as well as Basketball Society senior writer. He's going to join us here in just a little bit. You're in the Cheap Seats on the Public House Media Network.
This is Sam Kirby, host of Cinema Stories here on Public House Media. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media. Once you're done with this episode, I hope you'll come check out my show, Cinema Stories, where we hang out and just talk movie and TV news and reviews, and it's awesome. A new show comes out every single Tuesday. Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes so you never miss an episode of Cinema Stories. Thanks again for checking out the following broadcast on Public House Media.
God's plan. I hold back sometimes I won't. I feel good sometimes I don't. I finesse down Western Road.
Welcome back in the Cheap Seats. Christian Heimall and Jon Lauder with you on the Public House Media Network. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, review, Apple Podcasts, iTunes, Google Play, as well as Spreaker.com, and of course you can check us out on thephmedia.com. John, you think it was God's plan for the Raptors to be down 0-3 now?
That's just, you know what, you're better than that. That was lame.
I'm really not, though. I'm really not.
I am still trying to figure out how to make $1 out of 15 cents.
Well, one guy who knows how to do it. I don't know. Is Media Mogul underselling it too much for Brandon?
Yes.
Yes. It is.
You know what? Yeah, of course.
Brandon Robinson, Scoop B Radio
you have to
Podcast.
Oversell, Christian. You have to oversell.
I know. One guy who knows how to make $10 out of 15 cents. He's pretty good at all that stuff. Brandon Robinson, Scoop B Radio Podcast, scoopbradio.com. Joins us now, and of course, senior writer at Basketball Society. Brandon, thanks so much, brother, man. Appreciate the time.
Thank you, fellow Hofstra brethren. What's going on?
Always good to have another Hofstra guy here with you. And, I'll just get right into it. I mean, who are you more disappointed by in this semifinals for the Eastern Conference right now, the Sixers or the Raptors, for both being down 0-3?
The Sixers, but I think I say that with reservation because I was the silly one to pick the Heat to beat the Sixers in the first round. So spank on me, but bigger than that, I think that when you look at the Sixers-Celtics matchup, I mean, the all roads pointed to Eastern Conference Finals with at the very least for the Sixers because you look at the Celtics, Gordon Hayward out first game of the season, Kyrie Irving out. And here it is, Terry Rozier, Marcus Smart, Jaylen Brown, and a list of other cast members. One of the Morris twins are figuring it out. A bunch of no names. Kind of reminds me, not no names, but guys that are not led by a superstar. I want to clarify that. Mm-hmm. But it kind of reminds me of, if you look at baseball, the San Francisco Giants when they won that World Series. A bunch of guys with no leading character and doing it all. And the crazy thing is, we thought the way it's looking now that the Eastern Conference Finals would be what we thought it would be, the Celtics and the Cleveland Cavaliers. And that's just crazy to me, but somebody's put a battery in these guys' back and they're doing what they're supposed to do. And kudos to them, but dag, I mean, couldn't this series go a little longer? All that nostalgia of Celtics and Sixers rivalry, you'd want a little more.
Yeah, but both of these Eastern Conference series have been pretty much piles of hot garbage. But
yeah,
Cavs series. Christian and I talked about this in our first segment. Is it possible that Dwayne Casey could go from a potential Coach of the Year candidate to being out of a job if Toronto gets swept? What do you think?
I don't ever want to say someone's out of a job, but I never looked at him as Coach of the Year. And I've said this on previous other shows. I feel as though really and truly Quinn Snyder it should be a substantial candidate for a Coach of the Year. Just like I think last year Mike D'Antoni was improbable as far as doing what he did in the Rockets. And I look at Dwayne Casey and his Toronto Raptors, and to me they look like what Houston was last year, a top team all last year, but succumbed to the pressure of the better team. When you look at the Cavaliers, they're the better team because I think they had to figure out some internal things. Isaiah Thomas in that situation earlier in the season, and then a trade that substantially made a team better, and I think that adjustment, the Cavs aren't a true 4 seed and the Raptors aren't a true 1 seed. And I think that LeBron and them have had their number. I mean, think about it. For years, Michael Jordan had the Cavs' number. Michael Jordan had the Knicks' number, and what have you. And some may argue that the Cavaliers are getting good karma based upon the years of Craig Elo getting torched by LeBron, Gerald Wilkins getting torched by LeBron. It's like the city of Cleveland is now getting their just due by really and truly just winning. And it seems like LeBron has Toronto's number the same way. That Michael had the Knicks' number and the Cavs' number.
It's so strange to look at these two series, considering that both the Celtics and the Cavaliers went through wars in the first round, absolute wars. And I look at Cleveland. LeBron carried that team through the first round against Indiana. But all of a sudden here, through these first 3 games, Kevin Love has hit some big shots. J.R. Smith has played some pretty solid defense. What's changed with the supporting cast in Cleveland here against these Toronto Raptors?
the fear of losing. You look at that Pacers team, and credit to Victor Oladipo, Lance Stevenson, et cetera. The storyline with Lance is great, blowing in the ear. But when you look at LeBron James and himself and what he's done this year, to me, honestly, and I followed his career and or covered it since 2003. He and I are the same age and, graduated high school the same year. But when I look at LeBron and what he's done this year, to me, it looks like he's having fun playing basketball like he did as a senior at St. Vincent St. Mary's High School in Akron, Ohio. And I think that the game is simpler. And I think that when you look at guys like Kevin Love that are benefiting from, playing with LeBron as well as, other guys on that team, I think the thing that stands out most about that is that while LeBron and Kyrie were alpha males in a situation in Cleveland the last few years, unfortunately and fortunately, LeBron has to be in a team situation where he can shine himself and help others shine. And I think there was a logjam at basically LeBron and Kyrie playing the same position on the floor as the primary ball handler. And you're looking at, any team that LeBron James plays on minus Kyrie Irving. I think Kyrie was the best player he's played with. Wade is a very close second. But I think that when you look at just any team that LeBron James is playing on, he needs a dominant shooter. That's a big. You look at guys like Daniel Marshall way back when. He hit some key shots for them when they went to the NBA Finals back in 2007 against the Spurs. You look at Zajunas Ilgauskas, a big that can stretch the floor, hit the 15, 16-footer. And then, you look at other guys. Kyle Korver, to me, is his modern-day James Jones or Ray Allen. So I think for LeBron, premium shooting is a must. And I think, having a guy that can be his number two is important. I think Kyle Korver has been consistently a good shooter for the Cavs this year. But you're seeing other guys step up. And I think, you got guys like George Hill, who I think in later rounds is going to be who Darren Williams was supposed to be last year on that team. So I think that it's important for teams to do well. But I think the biggest thing for the Cavs to progress to the next round is I think LeBron's got to continue to play how he's playing, but I also think that the supporting cast, shooting-wise, has been there. So, Dwayne Casey, your question, I don't think he's out of a job, but I think that he's definitely going to be in a hot seat come next season.
All right, so breaking things down here with Brandon Robinson inside the cheap seats on phmedia.com, Public House Media, Spreaker, Google Play, Stitcher, iTunes, you name it. Now, look, Brandon, we've seen the Warriors have a little bit more trouble with the Pelicans than I thought they would. Same with the Rockets and the Jazz. Can the Cavaliers, if they get to the finals, win the whole thing? Can they beat the Rockets or the Warriors? I'm still not convinced. What say you?
I've been pretty ardent in my statements throughout the season that I believe that the Cavs can win it. But I think that the situation with the Rockets that's different this year as opposed to last year is they actually are in the top 10, I believe, in the regular season in defensive efficiency. And I think the difference maker between this year and last year is the play of Clint Capella at the power forward position. And I think, if the Cavs were to play the Rockets in the NBA Finals, that's going to create havoc because I don't think that Tristan Thompson or Kevin Love can check Clint Capella at all. And I also think that if we're playing against a Warriors team, I think everybody loves to hate the Warriors. And, they've proved that they can be successful the last few years, injured or not. The way it's looking now, it seems as though it's going to be Warriors and Cavs. But I think the difference maker for the Cavs and the Warriors this season, if that were to be the matchup of the year, the Cavs have gotten younger. And I think one of the biggest difference makers for the Cavs in the next round will be the play of Jordan Clarkson, who has not had to really adjust his play at all since coming to Cleveland because he played with assumed Hall of Famer in 2021, Kobe Bryant. And I think he can, and especially having played in the Western Conference, play well. I believe that this Cavs team was built to combat with the Warriors, and I think they have a chance. I don't think I'm in a minority in people who say that. Maybe they're not as freely to speak up as I am, but I think the Cavs can go toe-to-toe. And I think the biggest maker for the Cavs, if they were to play against the Warriors this season, is premium shooting. a healthy Kyle Korver, a George Hill that can be a defensive stopper. And as I said before, was everything that Darren Williams was supposed to be last season. Jeff Green, he went radio silent last season in the finals. And I think that this year it's a different situation. Same with Kevin Love. I also think that the marquee matchup is obviously going to be LeBron and Kevin Durant. And I don't think LeBron is going to go out like that, like he did last year. Last year, it wasn't so much coaching as it was just Kyrie and LeBron couldn't do it by themselves last year. And this year, I think LeBron has more shooters. And he's just playing out of his mind. He is literally a human NBA Jam machine.
He's playing really well, 34 assists and 6 turnovers so far in this series against Toronto. We're speaking with Brandon Robinson, Scoop B Radio podcast here in the Cheap Seats. Christian Heimall and Jon Lauder. Still a lot to play for this season, but some teams have already gotten set for next season with a couple of different coaching hires. I want to talk about specifically David Fizdale in New York, a guy who didn't have a great relationship with his star player in Memphis, and it's probably the reason why he's no longer there. But first off, how big of a hire is this for the Knicks, a franchise that has been in complete flux for the last 20 years? And then secondly, how much should Knicks fans stop freaking out at the fact that David Fizdale has LeBron's number from his time as a Miami Heat coach, like Frank Isola, the New York Daily News, put in his column on Friday morning? There's no chance that LeBron goes to New York, correct?
No, I don't think LeBron goes to New York. I think that the biggest candidates at this point, in addition to staying in Cleveland, would be the Philadelphia 76ers. And I wouldn't sleep on the Miami Heat as an option as well, as a return to Miami. But in answer to your first question about Fizdale, number one, my follow-up question is, how's that for data? I look at David Fizdale. I don't think the Knicks did anything groundbreaking. I think they got the popular pick that everybody was looking towards. And I think that a lot of NBA teams are scared to rehire Mark Jackson. People that I've spoken to with knowledge of Mark Jackson and the things going on, it seems as though teams are making extra calls kind of just to hate on Mark, just the way things went in Golden State. And, the thing that I find interesting is I think Mark Jackson doesn't need to be with the Knicks, because I think the Knicks, him being from one of the five boroughs, as well as with Kenny the Jet Smith over at TNT, I think New York can ruin you. And I think you being in your home city, you want to be able to come home all right. And I think that the Knicks are a project. But I think with David Fizdale, you talked about LeBron having his number or he having LeBron's number. I think one thing that's great about his situation with the Knicks is he's a player's coach. In this league now, it's not about X's and O's and what you did 10 years ago. To paraphrase what my mom and my uncle would say, you can't poop what you ate last year. I feel like at the end of the day, you have to really look at the fact that David Fizdale is a player's coach. You look at the Michael Beasley situation. Michael Beasley played well under Jeff Hornacek. And I think Michael Beasley and David Fizdale could coexist. You also have to look at the health of Kristaps Porzingis, in the long term. When will he return? Or will he be the same player that he is? One thing that I think is very interesting about the Knicks is, people criticize Tim Hardaway Jr. and him coming back. I think he could have a monster year under David Fizdale, and I'm looking forward to it. But I think it's a process, and I think, the same way that owner Dolan was kind of hands off of Phil Jackson, I think the brain trust within the Knicks needs to be that way with Fizdale as well, because he has multiple championships. And I also think if the Knicks want to talk about nostalgia, which they always do, the Knicks fans are in love with the 90s. One positive thing is the fact that Fizdale came out of the Pat Riley tree. And, that's maybe that's karma's way of coming back to New York in a good way. But, I would have liked to see Mark Jackson, but I think he needs to go to an already made team. I think he is at that point in his career.
Now, Brandon, you just said that speaking of Pat Riley, you just said that you think there's a chance that LeBron could go back to Miami. You are the first human being that I have heard say that in all of the media world. Considering the way the bridges were sort of burned there, do you really think that's a possibility? Because that would be fascinating if LeBron went back to South Beach.
Well, I applaud you because you're a good listener. But yes, I think it's possible because that team has found a way to go young again and rebuild. And I think that LeBron doesn't have to play for a major market team in order to do it. And I also think this familiarity, I think with the organization, then to initially, or to rather directly answer your question about just the situation with LeBron and Pat Riley, etc. He found a way to come back to Cleveland.
Yeah,
that's true.
Why not try to mend the fence? You know, I'm going to use my one Kanye get out of jail free card today. But when you look at Kanye West, and one thing in all the translations of things that he's talked about, the one thing that he's talked about in his whole rant is healing and moving past it. And you saw things that he talked about with his mother's surgeon and everything else, and all that other stuff. Why not extend an olive branch and make it right in Miami? And I think with the young team that they have, who wouldn't want to build around a point guard in Dragic, who wouldn't want to build around, Justice Winslow, as well as a center that has work to do, but, as a guy that, you could legitimately build around and do some things. So Miami is not in a bad situation, but I think the front runners obviously are the Philadelphia 76ers because of the young folks that they have on that team, and, could contend for a championship in the next 1 to 2 years.
May help those haters who would say if he went to a third team, that would really take away his opportunity to be considered in the same realm as Michael Jordan. Last thing I want to ask you here, Brandon, a story that came out on Friday, and I absolutely love it, and I'm so happy about it and hope it actually happens. Becky Hammon, who is the first female full-time coach in the NBA as an assistant under Greg Popovich with the Spurs, is said to be at least discussing or interviewing for the Milwaukee Bucks job. She's incredibly talented as a coach in my mind, and she's proven that she can be in that locker room, in an NBA locker room. How likely is it that she gets this job? And if not, how soon should we expect to see Becky Hammon as the head coach of an NBA franchise?
First of all, I think it has nothing to do with the power of women and everything that's going on in the media cycle. I think she's earned the right outright, and I think that anybody who says otherwise, haters are everywhere. But in all actuality, as I talked about David Fizdale with the whole Pat Riley thing, Becky Hammon not only was a great WNBA player, excuse me, she also led the San Antonio Spurs to a Summer League championship, which was definitely a resume builder. But aside from all of that, coming out of the Greg Popovich coaching tree definitely helps. Brett Brown has, Mike Budenholzer has, and anybody who's associated with Greg Popovich, in my mind, is somebody worth talking about in a great way. And I think that, Greg Popovich is our modern day Phil Jackson, and he's mentored folks. I think that's one thing. Phil Jackson was great with players. Greg Popovich was great with coaching minds. And I think for Becky Hammon, becoming a head coach in the NBA is nothing to sneeze at. I mean, and you look at the NBA at large, they're very progressive in things. You look at Sarah Kustok over Yes Network. She is a lead, or rather an analyst at Yes Network. You have Doris Burke, who's doing her thing at ESPN. Now that's God's plan if her and Drake actually go out on a date. But in all actuality, I look at the situation with Becky Hammon, and I think Becky Hammon would be a great fit for our league and would be a blueprint. I think that every generation, you look at Cheryl Miller, you look at, Cheryl Swoops, you look at, Becky Hammon. It's just the progression of just the way things should be. And I think it's likely that it'll happen because I think that the Milwaukee Bucks organization is just that progressive. I mean, they went and got Jason Kidd, who had a year of coaching experience with the Brooklyn Nets, and made him a head coach and gave him a long-term deal. It didn't work out. But I like everything about that. And I genuinely hope that it's done. And as Stevie Wonder would say, signed, sealed, delivered, I'm yours.
He's Brandon Robinson, Scoop B Radio Podcast. Check him out, scoopbradio.com, also the senior writer at Basketball Society. Brandon, it's always great to talk with you, pal. Thanks so much, and enjoy the rest of the playoffs.
Gentlemen, thank you for doing your thing.
We'll be back in just a little bit and wrap things up here. Plenty still more to come, though, in the Jeep Seats on Public House Media.
This is Ryan Pierce, host of Completely Serious here on Public House Media. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media. Once you're done with this episode, I hope you'll come check out my show, Completely Serious, where we talk about sports and have fun with great guests. Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes so you'll never miss an episode of Completely Serious. Thanks again for checking out the following broadcast on Public House Media.
Hold up, wait a minute. Y'all thought I was finished? When I bought the ass tomorrow, y'all thought it was rented? Flexing on him, some like Popeye on his spinach. Double M, yeah, that's my team. Rose, the captain, I'm lieutenant. I'm the type of can that mean cast and grind like I'm broke. That Lambo, my new, she'll ride like my ghost. I'm riding around my city with my hands on my toes, cause these want me dead, and I gotta make it back.
A little bit of Meek Mill, who I heard, Christian, might have to go back to prison if the Sixers get swept. And maybe you'll take Robert Kraft with him. But anyway,
how great was that?
Brandon
by the way?
brought up something
how
very
great
interesting.
Was that?
Yeah,
Meek Mill, Gucci Mane,
amazing. Yeah, like what can Robert Kraft not do? Brandon brought up an interesting, sort of quandary that you can't poop out what you ate last year. But that's not true, because the first time that you defecate on January 1st, you in fact pooped out what you ate last year.
All right.
So clearly I'm a genius and deserve some sort of Nobel Prize. Anyway, let's move over to the NFL, because I've just embarrassed myself. I'm actually angry about Jason Witten, Christian, and let me tell you why. I'm not angry that he retired. I mean, that's fine. He's old. He wanted to give it up. He's a Hall of Famer. That's great.
Sorry, Giants will still leave him open in the middle.
Say what?
Giants will still leave him wide open in the middle. It's fine.
Yes, they will, because they have no linebackers. Anyway, I'm frustrated that they gave Witten, who has the amount of broadcasting experience that my dog does, the job over Kurt Warner, who is not only a fantastic broadcaster, but has years of experience. Why have we decided that just any athlete that can open their mouth and complete half a sentence should get a broadcasting job? I mean, didn't we learn from Emmitt Smith?
Yeah, I don't know. I really don't know.
Now, look, Witten seems to be a very intelligent human being, and I'm not saying that he couldn't do this, but, couldn't you have him on like a 2 a.m., NFL countdown or something before you put him right on Monday Night Football? I mean, seriously? We're just going to give this job away? I mean, Fox was trying to give Peyton Manning like $7 billion a year, and Manning is about as interesting as a bar of soap. Why?
I would love to hear Manning break down games. It's one of the reasons why I think quarterbacks do so well. It's why Troy Aikman is there. It's why Tony Romo.
That's fine. Witten's not a quarterback.
No, I agree with you. I 100% agree. I firmly believe Kurt Warner should have been that guy. Warner 100% should have been that guy, because, again, as a quarterback, you see things differently. It's one of the reasons why, when you look at some of the best basketball commentators, they're either head coaches or point guards. Mark Jackson, Jeff Van Gundy. Brian Scalabrini's okay in Boston, but he works in Boston because he's a homer there. But when you look at baseball, it's managers or pitchers. Rick Sutcliffe is tremendous at his job.
We all remember how bad John Kruk was, right? Like, come on.
Yeah, Krucky wasn't. He's hilarious, but he's just.
Oh, of course he's funny. Of course, Rex Ryan's funny. He's terrible on air.
Oh, I know. But I firmly agree with you. I firmly believe that Kurt Warner, because of the experience, I was not happy. I understood the idea of Tony Romo. I did. I really did, because he's.
Yeah, that one I got.
Right. Because of the quarterback thing, but he's also well versed. He's an educated guy, as is Jason Witten, and they've been around. But here's the other part, and this is what really, as a New York Giants fan, this is what sets me off. It's because of the uniform he wore, because of that star.
You're right.
Mm-hmm. The most marketable franchise outside of the New York Yankees is the Dallas Cowboys. And that's the reason why Jason Witten got this job, because he was a Dallas Cowboy. And now you have Troy Aikman, Daryl Johnston, Tony Romo, and Jason Witten, all as analysts. It's insane.
Crazy.
Insane to think that, but good on him. Listen, he's not going to be he'll be a Hall of Famer. He's not going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. He's nowhere near the best tight end of all time, in my opinion. But good for him. He was the face of the Cowboys franchise for the last 15 years. So
yeah, it's true. You're inside the cheap seats on Public House Media. Jon Lauder, Christian Heimall with you. You can follow both of us on Twitter. You can follow Christian at Chris Heimall, ChrisHeimall. You can follow me on Twitter to figure out how you can poop stuff that you ate last year at Jon_Lauder, JON_LAUDER. Make sure you go to the phmedia.com, go to the store, buy some stuff, get some coffee cups so you can have coffee with Keith and Katie. You know what? I think we need some do-rags. What do you think? Do-rags with the Cheap Seats logo on
I'll
them?
rock one of those. I need it to protect my head.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. It's getting hot out there. Make sure you have sunscreen.
Yeah, I need sunscreen on my head. Yes.
That's right. Also, make sure you go to
80, but whatever.
Make sure you go to the. Oh, this show's off the rails. Make sure you go to the Cheap Seats Facebook page. Vote on our poll question. Simple one. Most disappointing performance: Raptors or Sixers? Pick your poison. The answer is Raptors. But
Really?
make sure you go to the Facebook. Yes. They're
Really?
the number 1 seed.
John, they're not a number 1 seed. They'd be the number 3 seed if the Celtics were healthy and if LeBron James didn't need to be GM at the trade deadline.
Yeah, but
they might even be the 4 seed if John Wall was healthy.
I know that, Christian, but they were the number 1 seed, and they can't beat the Cavaliers, who have one good player, and the rest of them are garbage.
But they've never been able to beat the Cavaliers. At least the Sixers were impressive. They were a formidable squad. For me, it's the Sixers because you're going up against a Boston team that literally is playing with their second string.
Yeah, but they've got the greatest coach in the history of modern sports.
All of a sudden, he's Vince Lombardi and Red Auerbach.
He could be the president if he would just give this up and run for office. I vote for him tomorrow. Anyway, we're going to move on before I get really angry. Couple of other interesting NFL stories. QBs are getting really mad in the AFC North, Christian.
Why?
Big Ben in Pittsburgh. Well, because they're babies. Big Ben in Pittsburgh, Joe Flacco in Baltimore. Apparently, neither of them will talk to the quarterbacks who were just drafted.
Whatever.
Neither of them seem all that thrilled, even though Mason Rudolph has zero chance to be the starter because Ben Roethlisberger now apparently is going to play for like 10 more years.
After he's contemplating retirement in week 6.
Correct. And Joe Flacco has been such a hot pile of garbage for so long now. And Lamar Jackson is so incredibly athletic and talented that he'll probably be the starter by week 4. Competition's good. Stop being a baby. I'm tired of this. It's annoying. It's annoying.
Listen, I agree with you. Here's my biggest issue. If you're Joe Flacco and you didn't think that, the Ravens were considering bringing in Colin Kaepernick and then they signed Robert Griffin, what's the biggest difference between you two from a quarterback skill standpoint? You sit in the pocket. These guys can move around and Robert Griffin can't move around, but, these guys can actually move around. So when they draft Lamar Jackson, I understand Joe Flacco's antennas going up and going, well, they just drafted my replacement. Well, yeah, bud. You've been in the league for what, 9 years, 10 years already?
Yeah, and you had
10 years.
You had 4 good playoff games. You've done nothing else your entire career.
Exactly.
You're the poor man's Eli Manning.
The really poor man's Eli Manning. But
yes.
So because Eli's got 2 rings and will be a Hall of Famer.
Correct.
Joe Flacco
Correct. Yes.
won't even
100%.
sniff the state of Ohio.
100%.
Big Ben, on the other hand, this is the weirdest thing in the world to me. There are some athletes who just get so protective over their starting spot that they're willing to risk the success of the team and the future of the team for them.
I don't care.
Because what was the number one thing that you heard when Sam Darnold got drafted by the Jets? Josh McCown. Josh McCown is tremendous. You know how long you can stay in the league by being a quality veteran? You don't have to be the starter, but being a quality veteran who helps the young guys along.
He's basically already a quarterback's coach. Apparently, he's great with the young players.
If I'm Ben Roethlisberger and I see a guy like Mason Rudolph, who, by the way, I really do like Mason Rudolph. I like him a lot. Quality, stand-in-the-pocket quarterback who can just fire it in there. If I'm Ben Roethlisberger, I look at that. If I'm Joe Flacco, I look at that and go, I could extend my career by 3 years coaching this kid to be my replacement, where maybe I could get a ring sitting on the bench in my last year.
Well, and look, especially for Big Ben. Joe Flacco, I get it a little bit more. He's really on the downside. There's a good chance Jackson could start. There's no chance that Big Ben's going to lose his job. So why be a jerk about it?
Yeah.
They're not going to sit him. It just makes no sense. Speaking of quarterback, go ahead.
No. You're that was it. I don't understand it. I really don't. It makes zero sense to me.
It's insane. One other quarterback thing: Matt Ryan, 5-year contract, $150 million, $100 million guaranteed. Is Aaron Rodgers going to get a 5-year, $250 million contract? Because he's worth at least $15 million more a year than Matt Ryan is. These contracts
how much
are
salary
insane.
cap room do they have?
I don't even know.
He deserves it, but how much salary cap room does he have? You know, I mean,
I have no idea. To be honest with you, he's mad at the Packers right now. He might leave. I'm terrified.
Yes, he should be, as all of Packers fans.
They got rid of Jordy Nelson. They got rid of Van Pelt as quarterback coach. I mean, they did draft like 7 wide receivers to try to make up for it, but he is not happy, and I do not blame him. So hopefully he does not leave. Either. Aaron, do not leave. Please do not leave.
It's one of those things where it's just like, I understand the quarterback is such a tremendously important position, but you need someone to block for him. You need someone to hand the ball off so he doesn't have to throw it all the time. You need receivers to actually catch it, and you need a defense to get him the ball in his hands.
Yeah.
The quarterback is, in my opinion, here's what the quarterback is. The quarterback is the key to the car. That's it.
Yes. You still need a car.
The car is so nice. The car can have all these great parts, but it doesn't work if you don't have the key. So, do we pay an extra $30,000 when we go buy a car for the key? No. You don't need to do that. You build around your quarterback.
Without the car, the key is worthless.
Exactly. I mean, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but what's Tom Brady scheduled to make this year? Like what's the guy who's the guy who's always taken a pay cut to get more guys around him?
Yeah.
Like that's what's amazing to me. So good on Atlanta. Good for Matty Ice.
Stop it. Gross. It's gross.
Good for Matty Ice. Maybe he can donate some money to help Ben Simmons find his jumper fund. But since he's from Philadelphia, maybe he can do that.
Oh God.
I don't know.
And last thing before we go to break here, Seattle continues to rebuild. They cut Cliff Averill, looking to get rid of Earl Thomas now. They almost traded him to the Cowboys. Are they even going to be 500 next year? I don't think they're going to be very good.
No. Because I'll be honest.
They're in a really good division.
I'll be honest. Yeah, the Rams are going to be good. Of course, the Niners are going to be fun to watch.
Yeah, I mean the Cardinals probably won't be great, but I do like Rosen. So who knows? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean the Seahawks might honestly finish 4-12. Who knows?
Yeah. All right. So we got one more segment to go. It's been a fun show. We'll talk some Major League Baseball when we get back. We got our Mojo Monday. Make sure you answer the poll question. We'll be back in just a moment here inside the Cheap Seats.
This is Katie, co-host of Coffee with Keith and Katie here on Public House Media. Once you are done with this episode, I hope you'll come check out my show, Coffee with Keith and Katie, where we talk about the adventures of our daily lives and relationship. A new show comes out every Tuesday and Friday at 8:30 p.m. Central. Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes so you never miss an episode of Coffee with Keith and Katie. Thanks again for checking out the following broadcast on Public House Media.
My left stroke just went viral. Right stroke put a baby in a spiral. Soprano C, we like the.
I have no idea what Kendrick Lamar means when he says about his left stroke going viral. But
yeah, you know what? That's just weird.
I like it. I like the song, and it reminds me even
white Christian. We're white.
I understand, but I've been very vindictive today against the Raptors and the Sixers, and Kendrick is just reminding me to be humble. So
I mean, both of us are whiter than a glass of milk with a sugar cookie next to it. Okay, so
man. My girlfriend's work the other day on Friday had these Star Wars sugar cookies. She brought one home. It was so good.
Oh, my God. They're so good.
It was amazing. Anyway, you're in the Cheap Seats here. Heimall and Jon Lauder with you on the Public House Media Network. We'll switch things over to the Diamond. A couple of headlines real quick. Justify winning the Kentucky Derby, breaking a 136-year-old curse for not racing as a 2-year-old. Celtics and Cavs both go for the sweep tonight in the NBA. Warriors and Rockets will be closing their series out later this week, barring, everybody falling down and getting hurt. Capitals.
If you need financial advice, Brandon Robinson could turn a 50 cents a dollar, so clearly he needs to start making money for people.
Yeah, Capitals and Jets looking to close things out in their NHL Stanley Cup final playoffs.
The New York Jets?
No, the Winnipeg Jets, the good Jets.
Oh.
The good
Have
Jets.
you been to Winnipeg? I'm sure it's beautiful.
I have never been. Really want to go.
No, me neither.
Would be really nice. Get some Major League Baseball news here because there have been some really oh my God. Some teams are just so terrible it's just not even funny, and some teams are so good it's actually really, really, really scary. Yankees rookie almost threw a no-hitter yesterday, which was ridiculous. And they're just not even fair to being so good. I saw an infographic on yesterday, I think it was. In the last 15 games, the Yankees are 11-4, but the Mets are 5-10, and they of course just DFA'd Matt Harvey because he wouldn't take a rehab assignment or a AAA assignment, I should say. And so now he's going to be out of New York. Has there been a bigger fall from grace than Matt Harvey? Like, can we think of one? It's so rad. Like 3 years ago, this guy was 4 outs away from a World Series title.
I mean, you know what? Actually, 2 former Mets came to mind, Darryl Strawberry and Dwight Gooden. And I say that because they both would have been Hall of Famers.
Okay, so
they were still very good players, though, whereas Matt Harvey is really bad now. So
yeah.
I don't know if that's the best comparison, but just from a New York perspective, those 2 guys should have been Hall of Famers, but, drugs and everything sort of messed up their careers. Those are the 2 that came to mind, but no, Harvey is a disaster.
It's unbelievable. And the fact that a guy who, had Tommy John surgery, who knows that he can't throw as hard as he used to, and yet is still ignoring everybody, saying, I'm still going to try to blow it by you. And when it's not working, still hasn't changed. This is a guy who is mentally not there.
Yeah.
He is what's deemed a mental midget because he's not willing to grow and learn how to do something. Jake Arrieta might win a World Series for the Philadelphia Phillies in the next 3 years because he's learned how to pitch differently.
Right. And he's got a guy in New York that's done exactly that. CC Sabathia. You should be looking at him. Okay? CC's got like a 1.70 ERA so far this season. He has changed his approach completely. Mm-hmm. He can't throw 96, 97 miles per hour anymore. Nope. So he's completely changed his whole perspective. Mariano Rivera, greatest closer in the history of baseball, threw a cut fastball that was like 92 miles an hour his entire career, right? Like, you don't have to throw 98 miles per hour. Greg Maddux. We can go on and on here. Like, you have to be able to change the way you throw the baseball. You had Tommy John. You've had this thoracic thing. You've had injuries. You have to be willing to change, and he's not. And, of course, he's got Scott Boras, who is the worst type of agent for somebody like a Matt Harvey. The whole thing is a disaster.
You know what? You just said it, and that just clicked in my head. Terrell Owens. Scott Boras. Scott Boras. Alex Rodriguez. Didn't Scott Boras tell Alex Rodriguez to opt out of his massive deal in the middle of the World Series?
Yes.
And he might be the kiss of death in sports. If you're a Scott Boras client, he might be the kiss of death. Because Eric Hosmer, didn't get great money. JD Martinez didn't get great money this past year. So super agent Scott Boras might be on the downswing here. A couple other things from over the weekend. Albert Pujols becoming the 32nd member of the 3,000 hit club, becoming just the 4th guy ever with 3,000 hits and 600 home runs, joining Barry Bonds, Willie Mays, and Babe Ruth, which that flat out shocked me when I heard that Hank Aaron is not in the 3,000 hit club. I did not realize that. Guy hit 755 bombs, couldn't find a way to get 2,245 more hits. So
considering the Pujols was never never had any PED situation, is he the best hitter of the last 25 years?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah,
I think so. When you look at what he's done.
Because Ortiz, Ramirez, Rodriguez, all those guys, PEDs.
Not only that, but they've never been consistently great with their batting average either. Like Albert Pujols is right around 280 for his career, I think.
I think he's higher than that. He was around 315 until a couple of bad seasons with the Angels. I still think he's around 300.
He might be. Let's see here. Albert Pujols,
incredible.
His career batting average. Let's see. Career batting average, 280. No, that's his on-base percentage. 256. Oh, that's this year. I'm an idiot. 304. You're right. 304 in his career.
And think about it. He's had some really bad batting average seasons the last 4 or 5 years. He was at 320 with St. Louis.
Yeah. Let's see. 256 so far this year. 241 last year. He is yet to have.
You can make the argument that he is one of the 5 best hitters in the history of baseball. You can make the argument.
I would give you that. Because, listen, in his last, let's see, 2, 3, 4. In his last, if you include this year, his last 8 years, he has not hit 300. He has not, he hasn't hit higher than 285 in his 7 seasons with the Angels. He hit 299 his last year with St. Louis in 2011 at age 31.
Crazy.
You're right, he might be one of the top 5 greatest hitters of all time. Wouldn't surprise me at all there. So.
Now, a couple of other things real quick in the National League. Atlanta and Philly have gotten off to great starts. They seem to be ahead of schedule. Arizona's been really good. Dodgers and Nationals. No team last year that was under 500 after the first month of the season made the playoffs. Mm-hmm. And they were both under 500. And Kershaw and Harper, I believe, can leave next year.
Yeah, and Kershaw was just put on the DL yesterday.
Yeah.
So
they're in a lot of trouble. That's crazy how bad they've been.
Yeah, it's insane to see how terrible they have been this year. Especially, I mean, Corey Seager on the DL now for Tommy John surgery. He's out for the entire season. The Diamondbacks, I didn't expect them to be this good.
Oh,
I know a lot of people thought they would still make the playoffs. I did not think they would because I felt JD Martinez was the one guy holding that lineup together. But they've played incredibly well. They've pitched very well.
And the thing is, Paul Goldschmidt hasn't even been that good compared to what he normally is, and they're still this good.
Yeah, and meanwhile, you remember how I was freaking out after like 1 week about the San Francisco Giants, how they couldn't do anything?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're playing really good now. They're
they are.
Yeah. So it's gonna be tough. And the Nationals, I mean, if oh my goodness, if Matt Harvey figured his life out, the Mets could legitimately win this division. They really could.
Oh yeah.
But
of course they could.
Jacob deGrom hurt as well, so
yeah,
a lot of oh my goodness, so a lot of difficult stuff going on there in the National League, but still a lot of fun to watch. All right, time for our Mojo Monday. Of course, a good mojo, bad mojo, whoever's got it, whoever doesn't. Johnny, I'm going to start here with some good mojo for Major League Baseball because this year started what will be 13 different series, international series from 2018 to 2021. And so here's what we've seen so far. We saw a series in Mexico this past weekend, in which, by the way, the Dodgers threw a combined no-hitter against the San Diego Padres. Really, really cool. 23rd no-hitter, the first combined no-hitter in Dodgers history. First game in Mexico.
And this was the first international one, correct?
Yeah, first international one, and the first game in Mexico since 1999. First regular season game since 1999, and they get to see a no-hitter, which is awesome. Earlier this year, there was one in Puerto Rico as well, in which Francisco Lindor went yard in his home country, which is really cool. Next year, you're going to have the Red Sox and Yankees, I believe, playing in Asia on opening day, if I remember correctly, or in London. There's going to be a couple of them. In London. Yeah, in London. So, and then 2020, you're going to see more about Puerto Rico and the UK, and then 2021, a couple more in Mexico also. I think this is great if you're trying to grow the game. It's the most international game we have is baseball.
Unlike the NFL, this makes sense to play internationally.
Yeah, it is the most international sport we have that we're good at. And it's just great to see that they're trying to do this, and it's not just games; it's goodwill trips as well, which is awesome. Frankie Lindor went back to his middle school, I think, and brought like brand new textbooks or something like that. Awesome. Like it's great to see those type of things going on. So good on Major League Baseball for actually doing this, and more importantly, for having great games too. Because it's one thing if the Dodgers and Padres had absolute blowouts and it wasn't fun to watch, but a no-hitter, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I'm just going to be real quick with my bad mojo, especially if you are a male. Yadier Molina out for a month because he got hit in the groin.
Yeah.
That hurts. You know what? Anytime that happens to any male at any time, that's the bad mojo for the week. End of story.
Agreed. And he had to have surgery, which was the scary part.
Brutal.
Had to have traumatic hematoma.
I'm feeling his pain right now, and I'm starting to get upset.
Yeah, that's really unfortunate for Yadier Molina. So, but that's going to do it for us here in the Cheap Seats. Big thanks to Brandon Robinson, Scoop B Radio Podcast. Check him out, scoopbradio.com. Also, Basketball Society. Check us out on Facebook, the Cheap Seats by Public House Media. Vote on our poll question. More disappointing performance in the Eastern Conference semis, Toronto Raptors or the Philadelphia 76ers. Johnny and I are actually split on this one.
Oh, we are.
Very much so. And then, of course, like the page. Find us on Twitter at Chris Heimall, ChrisHeimmall. You can find Johnny as well at JON_Lauder, LAUDER. Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spreaker.com, of course, thephmedia.com. You get some awesome Cheap Seats gear. Jeff and Max are back in action on Wednesday. Baxter and Matt on Friday. We're back again next week once more. We'll see you up in the Cheap Seats.